I first met Gavin about 2 years ago now, when he was the VP of operations, I think, at Watson's Food, which is, you probably figured out, as a family business in West Haven. And it was a huge facility. We had this tour where we got cloaked up and really prepared from a hygiene point of view, because it was a food production processing plant for additives. And he gave this wonderful tour of machines that I had never seen. It looked like, I felt like I was on another planet. And the flow and the organization of his team around what they were doing was noticeably fluid. And at the end of it, he gave us a tour of his library. So I left, as I often do when I hook up with Gavin, with a handful of books. And it was the following week that we went back and got another look at a different side of the facility, where he'd opened up this huge vegetable garden for really the benefit of providing for his staff to do some sort of community gardening together. And he had some great stories about how the garden actually became a huge sort of social innovation within the manufacturing plant, because it gave people the opportunity that weren't working side by side in the factory floor to garden side by side and share the stories of their food and their different cultures and everything. So it became a great story of what WatsonInc used to be, or I'm sure still is. And of course, the garden also contributed to lots of sort of community food initiatives as well. So yeah, that's the kind of guy Gavin is. And of course, we went on early this year, he became the chairman of Conscious Capitalism. And so we've continued our journey together, and he's led the organization with great charm. And today you're about to discover he also has considerable expertise, when it comes to engineering some of the ideas that we just heard about with Alyssa's presentation. So these go very nicely back to back. And he was able to produce a tremendous amount of cost and energy savings in just doing what is, of course, the right thing. But he will go into some detail as to how he did it and why. So, so let's hand it over to Gavin, and a big warm welcome for Gavin. And thanks for coming, Gavin, sharing it.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks. This wonderful introduction. I'd forgotten about a bunch of that stuff. So, anyway, so as Glenn was saying, I am currently the chairman of the Connecticut chapter of Conscious Capitalism, and this is about energy and climate change and all of that. So we'll be talking about that, but this is also about, to an equal extent, is to the reason we did this the way we did it was also important. So because there's just a huge amount to be gained by doing this differently, or doing this in a non-normal sort of way. So am I coming through? Can you guys see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, totally.
Okay, good. Just because I can't see you, so I'm sort of like running blind a little bit, feel a little weird. So I want to talk to you a little bit about conscious capitalism first, because it sort of infused everything about what we did. And actually at the time we were doing it, I don't think I'd even actually read the book about conscious capitalism. It was just the way we were. And later on we kind of clued in, and that helped us to do even better. But conscious capitalism really has 4 principles. So the first one is conscious leadership. And that's the first one because conscious leadership basically allows everything else to happen. So the leader's job is to create a conscious culture, to point to or highlight the higher purpose, and involve all of the, raise the awareness that all the stakeholders matter. So, and just briefly, the way that you create a conscious culture is by being vulnerable as a leader, by saying, and explaining, I don't know everything. I make mistakes. If I make a mistake, I tell people, hey, I made a mistake. This is how much it costs. This is what happened. And by bringing my own quirky self to work. So when a leader does those things, makes it safe for other people to bring their quirky selves to work. It makes them, safe for them to say, oh, hey, I made a mistake, or I don't understand, or I need help, which is part of a conscious culture, right? And people really need to feel included and part of something. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And it's also about highlighting a higher purpose. So as you've heard, all throughout this thing, the last 3 days, it is so critical for companies to have a higher purpose. And for people to get, and basically allow and hope that people get energized by that higher purpose. So we want that higher purpose to be something that's clear, that everybody understands what it is, and people get behind it and get excited about it. Another job, really the third part of what the conscious leader needs to do is to raise awareness so that this involves all the stakeholders. So if you think about a little human group, a group of humans, operating together, 5, 6, 7 people, we're all really interdependent on each other. No one human being really there's one way of looking at human beings is that we are so much group creatures that we are not fully human without a group, or a group that we're belonging to. So in a company, you've got, small little groups of people, and then you've got groups of people, and all of those groups are all interdependent and, on each other. What most of us don't really think about is that at the company level, the same thing's happening. So a company is basically in an ecosystem with other companies, with suppliers, with customers. We're embedded in a community and part of the environment, and we have shareholders and all of these different things, and we're all part of this ecosystem, and it all has to work together. If it doesn't work together, it doesn't hang together. If one of those pieces takes more than their fair share, the whole thing falls apart. So there's just a little bit of background on conscious capitalism, and this will sort of infiltrate into what we did and why we did it the way we did. So conscious that you may be a business owner, you may know business owners or whatever, and now you've got, after this conference or probably even before this conference, you want to save energy, you want to do these things, and and you have various different motivators. You want to save the planet, you're getting pressure from your customers, you want to save money to save your business, a variety of reasons, right? And then there's all these different obstacles. Where do you start? Lack of resources, lack of expertise. I don't have time for this. I got all these other normal things to do. And then, lack of support, not being able to do it alone. And sometimes, actual active resistance from other, family members, board members, other groups within the company are saying, look, this is just distraction. Your CFO goes like, what are we doing? We need to be paying attention to this other stuff. This is not something we should be focused on right now. So you've got all these obstacles in the way, and we know this is something that we need to do, and we need to overcome that. So I want to, segue and talk for a second about engagement, because this is really the solution to this whole thing. So typically, Gallup does this poll, and normally there's about 13% of the employees that are actively disengaged. 47% that are not engaged. I listening to Lawrence Ford talk about it earlier, in day before yesterday, and talking about people sleepwalking through life, and I'm thinking like, yeah, those are all those disengaged people that are just, they're not engaged, they're not involved, they're just, they're at work because they need a paycheck, and that's it, and that's the only reason why they're there. And then you have that other 30% that's engaged. And currently, though, what's interesting is that right now, for years and years and years of it only being at 30% engagement, now all of a sudden we're at 40% engagement. So why is that? And I would just sort of suggest, or that, one of the reasons why we may be at so much a higher level of engagement right now is because so many more people have much more autonomy over what they're doing. And their boss, they're not embedded in an office, environment. They're working from home. It's up to them to figure out what to do next, what's next thing is most important, and then how should they go ahead and do it. So people have more autonomy then, and that can lead, that's a big part of engagement is how much autonomy you have. Also, one of the things I was thinking about this morning is there's that natural reaction against that 13% that are actively disengaged. They're drilling holes in a boat. But this morning I was thinking like, wow, yeah, they're drilling holes in a boat, but they're actually a little more awake than the sleepwalkers because they're pissed off. So at least so you kind of maybe want to talk to them, ferret them out and go like, okay, why are you drilling holes in a boat? Why are you unhappy with what's happening? Because they may be actually a really good source of inspiration or how things, could be different if we engage with them. I should say too, if you have, I want this to just be me chatting on endlessly. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, and Ali can unmute you and you can, actually, sorry, get back to this. Just, bring it up and talk and that kind of thing.
Gavin, it's me here, Eleanor, since you invited us to jump in.
Sure, yeah.
Are you saying then that that employees who might be in a way sabotaging or at least kind of so disengaged that they're kind of destructive could actually be a useful source of ideas because they're measuring what's happening against presumably some idea of how things could be better. They may still have a stake in how things could be improved.
Yeah, exactly. They're disgruntled with the way things are versus the people who are just sort of status quo, sleepwalking through it. That might actually be worse. It's sort of like the kid who's being disruptive in class because they're bored or whatever. Yeah, it's like, yeah, they're being disruptive, but maybe there's something there. And maybe if we talk to them and work with them, maybe there's, they can actually be easier to flip and turn on than the person who's more or less sleepwalking.
Thank you. That was such a big concept. I just wanted to kind of crunch through.
No, it's good. Yeah, and it only hit me, this morning. I was like, oh yeah, this might actually be really cool people to talk to, as opposed to like, trying to stuff them out the door as fast as possible, because maybe there's something there. And then and also I would say too that people join companies and we don't know where they've come from, what their background is, how they were raised, what their family life was like, what their fifth grade teacher did to them. Or maybe they have had horrible managers and supervisors in the past. And so that, whatever, there may be a whole bunch of stored sort of things that have to be unlearned and unexperienced to, so when somebody starts talking about, one of the things we would do is a two-day integration onboarding thing, and I would talk to people, and one of our basically our statement that we had in our company, our mission vision thing, was that we're an invested fellowship fostering health and happiness for all. And maybe they were like, oh yeah, that sounds good, it's all whatever, but it probably took a while for them to realize that no, I'm serious. We are invested fellowship, we're investing in each other, and this is about everybody's health and happiness, and that's what we're all about here. So anyway, so this is, we are talking about energy and climate change and everything. So one of the things we did was an energy usage assessment, and an energy usage assessment is basically an audit of all the energy in a building, where it's all going, what's happening, what it's being used for, and then trying to figure out what we can do that's better. So now, you could do the typical sort of central control, top-down way of doing it, or you can use this as an opportunity to like engage a whole bunch of people, because I guarantee you, if your group is of any size whatsoever, that there are people there in your company, in your group, that are so excited and interested in the environment that they will come out and really want to be part of something if you invite them. So the people who show up will be the ones who care about this. They will be engaged, and they'll be like super grateful for the opportunity to actually work on something meaningful. So the engaged people, they're the ones who are awake, they're full of purpose. They, awaken other people around them. One of the things I would talk about on that onboarding, 2-day onboarding thing, is that each of us is going to spend about 90,000 hours at work during our lives, and that we need to get more out of that than just a paycheck. I would literally tell people, look, you're coming in here, you're investing some effort, you're putting in some time, and that kind of thing, and getting some stuff done. And for that, we have, it's like breathing. You need a paycheck. The company needs to make money, and there's money exchange and pay sort of thing that happens around that. But I would also tell them, look, you've also invested, over your lifetime, you may invest 90,000 hours of your life with the rest of us. And I don't have enough money to cover you, to pay for the value of that, 90,000 hours of somebody's life. And we had 350 employees. So there's no way that, that value that people are investing with everybody else in the building every day is just enormous. So we all need to be getting more out of that than just a paycheck. We need to be getting, some sort of purpose-filled, fulfillment, out of all that time at work. I think you might have noticed that group of young people, that was on yesterday. Every single one of them were so energized and so inspired. They're so excited about what they were doing. Can you imagine what would happen if you had a company full of people, like that working, with you? So this is one of the slides that we show at our weekly Conscious Capitalism chat. So, selfless, selfish promotion thing that our Connecticut chapter does every Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We get together, have a town hall meeting, and talk about various different things. And this Thursday coming up, I'm going to be talking more about conscious capitalism and why it's true and why it meshes with who we are as human beings. But this is just to highlight a book done by Raj Sisodia, who's one of the founders of Conscious Capitalism, and he wrote a book called Firms of Endearment. And what he really did is they went out and they looked for companies that just did the right thing. And then they went back after they ferreted out, found those different companies, and then they went back and they looked at those companies' performance. And as you can see over here on the on this blue graph, they just totally outperform not only the S&P 500 and the good great company list, but just it's just huge difference. There's no comparison. So that's what having fully engaged, awake employees can do for you. So so use this energy. If you do an energy usage assessment or do anything like that, use it for more than just saving energy. Saving energy is great, but use it for more than that. Just a couple of quotes I really like. We tend to think that people need to be told what to do and things like that. Totally not true. All human systems are self-organizing and naturally tend towards high performance, provided certain essential preconditions are met. That's a guy named Harrison Owen. And then, there's Simon Sinek, who I'm sure you guys have all heard of. And he says, there's no fancy management theories. It's not about hiring dream teams. It's just a matter of biology and anthropology. If certain conditions are met, people inside the organization feel safe amongst each other, they'll work together to achieve things that none of them could have achieved alone. The result is that the organization is tower above the competition. So this was our strategy, sort of a visual way of representing what we did. So down here in the bottom, you can see this little red line, the do nothing case. So, if you basically just let your systems just degrade, you do nothing, make no improvements, you'll waste even more energy, slowly over time as things fall apart. Typically, what most companies do is follow this orange path. And really this orange curve should come up a little bit earlier over here and maybe not quite so high, and then taper down. And this is when, so if you've got what you can hire, an outside consultant to come in and go through your building, audit everything, see what needs to be done, make you a list, fill out forms, apply to the utility, get some money, you hire some contractors, and that's sort of this orange line. So that person comes in, finds these things, you get the stuff done. But over time, the various systems and processes and things that people put into place, including the human-centered ones where people have to actually remember to turn a light switch off and things like that, they don't happen, they fall apart, and you gradually don't do as well. So the alternative approach that we did was we hired an energy consultant, but and it was one that we found through a friend of ours. And we said, look, I told him, look, I don't want you to go through the building and figure this stuff out. I want you to teach our people how to figure this stuff out and have them go through the building, them see what's going on, come back with the numbers, and we'll crunch them together. And then we'll apply to money for the utilities and stuff. And then we'll do as many of the things we can ourselves rather than hire outside contractors. Because I'd really much rather pay our people overtime to come in on a Saturday and do something than have some outside contractor do it. So that's kind of where we went. So our company, Watson, was 77 years old at the time. We had over 300 people. Traver IDC is the energy solutions provider consultant company that we used. And then Lean Innovations is a company run by a guy named Fred Schamberg. It's a lean consulting firm. He's really, really good. And then United Illuminating is our which is now Vanguard, was our power company. So that's a picture of our business. We had 3 different buildings. This one's 90,000 square feet, and there's a couple other buildings besides that. It's not really all that important, but this is the sort of things we did. We made vitamin mineral supplements. We made edible glitter. You can see that in the picture in the middle there. And we also did ingredients for baking industry. At the time, so maybe let me slow down, pause. Are there any questions at this point? Any comments? Anybody want anything there that we should talk about?
Well, Gavin, I did ask if people on the call had been involved in community and employee engagement efforts, and we got a couple yeses. Certainly the lean framework is one that they might have run into, and in fact Paul Murphy on the call says he has. Do you want to just sketch out maybe a little more about the lean there? Or
yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, so there were at the time we did this, there were 3 programs that United Illuminating and Eversource offered. And down at the end of this, there'll be more information about how to get in touch with them and see what they offer now. But at the time, there were these 3 programs. So the PRIME program stood for Process Reengineering for Increased Manufacturing Efficiency, which I have to have on the screen because otherwise I can never remember that. But that was the lean program. So what they did was United Illuminating supported companies to do process improvement type things. So we were interested in lean. We interviewed a bunch of lean consultants, and we found Fred and Fred Schamberg. And one of the things we both loved about Fred is that he said lean's a growth strategy. So he said, if we're gonna come here and do lean stuff, and then you're gonna let people go, I'm not in. So he's only in it if this is the idea behind it is that it's getting us ready to grow. So if people retire, that's fine. If we and then the idea is that you get better, you figure out how to do things more efficiently and be able to produce more with fewer people and less time. And then that either frees people up to do other things that you'd love to have someone to do. So for example, we didn't have a parts department person, so I point blank told people, look, if we free somebody up and somebody wants to do parts, and there was a guy who ended up taking that job, and he was ecstatic and really, really good at it. But, you know, so you free people up to do other things that also benefit the company that maybe you couldn't afford initially. And or you just get ready for increased growth. So, you know, you grow the company by 10 or 15% and you don't have to hire any extra people because you already know how to do it more efficiently. So that's what that Prime program was about. The other program was the energy usage assessment, which we're going to talk more about. And then the last one was called the business sustainability challenge, which both Paul and I were involved in our different companies. And that was a great group where you know, companies that, you know, basically signed on to, you know, reduce energy, to increase employee engagement, and a lot of other increased recycling and other environmentally friendly things. And then we would get together at each other's facilities and take a tour and hear, you know, what everybody, you know, what different companies were working on and what people were doing, and get inspired and share ideas. So that was a lot of fun. That program, I think, is being redone. So hopefully that will be available. So now, so what we want to do is we want to get people engaged in this thing and get people to come and be part of an energy savings thing, right? So I've got a consultant who's going to come in and teach our people how to do this. So, you know, so basically I go out to all 300 people in the company and I say, this is what we're trying to do. We want to save energy. We want to be more efficient. We're going to be more environmentally friendly. Are you interested? If you're interested, you know, come see me. Let's talk to your, you know, manager or whatever, and see if we can free you up and you know, join this team and, you know, we'll work on this together. So basically, you know, people, you know, opted in and showed up, and you know, as Harrison Owen says, is whoever shows up are the right people. So if you open it up and allow people to self-select and things, you'll be surprised the people that will show up. So this is our team. The two people on the outside edges, those are the people from Traver IDC. You can see there's a bunch of guys from the maintenance department. There's process improvement engineer, and then there's another guy, Minran, in the white shirt there. He's actually the manager of the QC lab. He was an energy fanatic. So he was amazing, and it was fantastic to have him on the team. So that was the team. So what we did was Traver sat down with us, you know, did some training, taught us how to do everything, taught us how to gather information, look for air leaks, check steam traps, read motor data tags, you know, look at lighting fixtures and calculate the energy from them, all kinds of different stuff. So, and it's really important, you know, again, to talk, you know, autonomy is a really critical thing. So as the conscious leader, what you really want to do is invite people, like, this is the issue, this is the thing we need to work on, and I'm going to entrust you guys to figure it out and figure out how to do it, and you know, put this thing together. So you give them the authority to figure it out, and then talk to the rest of the company, say, look, these people are on a mission, they're doing a critical, important thing. If they come to you, ask you a question, or they need some help and everything like that, please try to accommodate them and help them out. And then, you know, you let the team figure out, you know, what to do and how to do it. So one of the things that we ended up doing was some of the team members came in on a holiday, basically, and did a sleeping building audit, which was a lot of fun. So we can talk about that later. But so first thing you do is go to the Gemba, which is a lean thing. So, you know, go where it happens, investigate, collect data, discover. And just as an aside, you know, this time period that we're talking about, this is 2015 to 2018, early 19. And we were already buying 100% renewable wind energy starting in 2010. So, but, you know, the idea is we're going to save even more of that energy so other people can use it instead. So this is the analysis. I guess, I don't know, I hope you guys can see this. But these are the different pieces of the pie where the energy was going. This is our air compressor over here. I had no idea that our air compressor was about, you know, it was over 25% of our total energy usage. So you can see up here in the chart, the compressor 24%, air leaks was 6%. So this light blue thing here, that, sorry, that's just leaks from the air compressor system. So that was $40,000 worth of just air leaking out of little holes all over the place. Let's see, so this is this red stuff here. This is the process motors. So this is the energy actually going into making product. So where the form, fit, and function of the material gets changed and things done. So you can see relatively small amount of our overall energy use actually getting used for making things happen that the customer is actually paying for. And then this green area here is air handling units, and we'll talk about that more later, but that's sort of like dust collectors and blowers and that sort of thing. And that also was a shock that it was that much. So you can see the group of people here together, crunching numbers and after having gone out, and lots of going in and out of the conference room with information, adding it into things. Is everybody still good out there? Haven't lost all you or anything like that?
No, Gavin, in fact, our audience has been growing a little bit. So I think maybe people who thought this session was going to start at 3 might feel like they came in the middle of a conversation, but I said, hey, stick around because you're going to go over it all and come back to where we started. Yep.
We'll come back. Yeah, exactly. We'll loop back around. So as you saw on that pie, I'll back up for a second, but this is the air compressor part. So this was the big spend, the big chunk of change what we spent on that. So this is one of the old air compressors over here. This is a 450 horsepower air compressor. It loaded, unloaded, basically cycled on and off. So the motor would run all the time, and then the air pressure would drop in the building. The thing would a clutch would engage, the thing would slam on, the pressure would drive up and hit like 115, 120 psi, and then it would disengage and it would drop all the way down to maybe 110 and back on again and go back and forth. So load, unload all the time, very inefficient. Also, this other drying system for drying the compressed air, which was very inefficient, lost a lot of air through that. Over here, you can see this white tank. So that was 1,500 gallons of compressed air in that tank. We added another 2,000 gallon tank over here, which basically helped to level the air out. So everything was more smooth. But the new air compressor that we put in is this one. You can see we stuck it on the pad, and we built a house and everything over the top of it after we installed it. But this is a VFD compressor, so it's a variable speed drive compressor, and it basically speeds up or slows down depending on the amount of air demand there is on it. So instead of slamming on and then coming off and going on and going off again repeatedly all the time, it basically just ramp up a little tiny bit or go down a little tiny bit, and you just hear it there, humming along and at a much lower speed rate than the other compressor was going. The other thing we did was we increased our piping size. So we originally had about 3-inch piping from this compressor to the building. The new piping is this stainless steel piping you can see up here. It was 6 inches in diameter, so much bigger. And the reason for doing that is that for every 2 psi of air pressure that you can lower your compressor, you save 1% of the electricity that's going to it. So this compressor is using 25% of our electrical demand. And by the way, I should just point out our annual electrical bill over here is $700,000. So we're talking about serious bucks. And the reason why we were, the equipment only needed about 85 psi to run, but we were running from 105 to 120 psi on the compressor, because that 3-inch pipe way down the end of the 90,000 square foot building down in the far corner wasn't delivering enough airflow. So by installing the 6-inch pipe and making the air lines actually a loop through the building, when we had 85 PSI at the compressor, you had 85 PSI at the machine. So we were able to drop the amount of pressure dramatically at the compressor, which ended up saving quite a bit of energy just by doing that. So this was the program that the power company was offering at the time was what was called a comprehensive program. So they didn't want you to come in with just like one thing, say, oh, we're just going to do lighting retrofit. I mean, you could do that, but the incentive was, look, if you come in with lighting retrofits, air compressors, you know, boiler related things, all kinds of different stuff all together, including in our case, electric motors and stuff, all as a package, will give you a higher incentive level because you're going to do this comprehensive thing. So it makes it a bit more complicated because you've got to do a whole bunch of different stuff. Gather all this information and put this package of stuff together for the utility, but in the end it works out a lot better. So you know, for example, replacing electric motors, in this case the return on investment would have been like 55 years, and so we didn't actually end up replacing all the motors, but we replaced motors that we otherwise probably wouldn't have, because, you know, maybe it would have been a 20-year payback or something. So we didn't, you know, we went further than we otherwise would have because of the comprehensive program. So I don't know if you can remember back on that graph, but that green area where I was talking about air handling units. So this was the other really big surprise. We had a lot of dust collectors. So virtually every one of the production rooms, and there were about 18 of them, would have a dust collector like this, or maybe a couple of rooms would be sharing one. But this type of sort of dust collector might have a 15 or 20 horsepower blower up on the roof, up the end of the top of this pipe up on the roof. And it's full of, this box is full of cartridges, like the sort of cartridges you see in your shop vac, but much, much bigger. And the cartridges get cleaned off or pulsed automatically by compressed air blast, which comes in to this blue square pipe here, and then by this little valve here, fires in there and blows the dust off the cartridge. So one of the things that we'd already done was to install these little sensors on them so that it would sense. So instead of the air just pulsing on a timer, instead the air would pulse based on how plugged the filters would be. So it would measure the pressure differential across the filter, and if it saw them they were loading up, then it would, you know, pulse, and after a couple of pulses it would clean them off, and then it would not pulse or anything. So we weren't wasting as much compressed air. And we thought that was great. We'd done this wonderful thing. And it was good, but it was a little tiny thing. What we ended up doing was we ended up switching to these dust collectors instead. And this was something that I just happened to discover at a trade show where actually I was giving a talk about energy saving things and saw these at a display. And started talking to the guy, but so these have had a few benefits. So instead of being like a 15 or 20 horsepower motor, it's only a 5 horsepower motor. They're smaller. So in this case, where it's drawing the dust from is right exactly opposite this wall that it hooks up to. So you get much closer. You don't have little long ducting lines that need to be cleaned out and all that sort of thing. But the other great thing about this is that it's returning the air from the production room that's on the other side of that wall. It's returning it back into the building. And what these things were doing is it was taking the air from the production rooms, filtering it to clear any dust out, and then exhausting it outside. So you can imagine if you were heating a room or you're air conditioning a room, and you're basically moving the equivalent of the entire volume of air from that room every 30 minutes and throwing it outside, you can imagine what that does to your heating load or your air conditioning load on your building. And just the negative air pressure, you could just, you know, when you went to open the door of the building, it was like, you could feel like the air, like you could hear it sucking into the building because we had so many of these dust collectors doing that. So by switching to these this kind of dust collector, and we're returning the air into the building, we weren't losing all the air conditioned air. We weren't losing all of that heat. That made a huge difference. We also replaced, we had 35 air conditioning units. Most of them were getting really old. We replaced all of them. And this was one of those things that we did ourselves. So those dust collection units, we did that ourselves. The air conditioning units, we replaced every single one of those ourselves with our own maintenance team. We found that this is, some steam piping, some steam traps and a steam pump there. We fixed a lot of those. This is Mike over here with an ultrasonic thing looking for air leaks or steam leaks, listening for them. This is a view of one of our roofs. So you can see it was all black rubber, and most of our processes actually generated heat. So for us, the big energy thing was cooling. And if you've got a bunch of air conditioners sitting up on a hot black rubber roof, they're just not going to be efficient because the air temperature up there on the roof might be 95, 110 degrees with the sun blazing on it in the summer. And so what we did was we actually coated the roofs. We got a silicone rubber coating. So we could have replaced all this black rubber. It would have been about $250,000 for this particular building these guys are working on right now. In the photo, and instead we coated it with about $50,000 of silicone coating. The manufacturer of that coating material came to our facility from Texas, trained all of our guys that were interested in doing this, and our guys, this is our guys, our group up there doing this roof. So they would do it in the afternoons after their, maybe they worked different shift, or they would, come up there and do it in the afternoons after their regular shift, or meet there on the weekend and work on it. And that saved us a massive, not only did it, keep the roofs in really good shape, but also saved a huge amount of energy. And of course, we replaced lights with LEDs and stuff as people normally do. So it's talking about the LED lights. Glenn had mentioned the garden thing. So here's a earlier picture of the gardens. This is actually, so we took the lawn and we plowed it up. We planted gardens. This is actually ended up being like 3 times as much by the end. That was one of the things that we came up with. We thought, well, maybe we can save people some money on, groceries and stuff. And, what if we plowed up the lawn and let people, plant stuff? And that did happen. But the biggest thing, the most fun part was just people collaborating, meeting each other, all of a sudden being adjacent to, somebody else that they normally didn't meet or talk to, has the garden plot next to them. They're asking them about the things that they're growing, that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And then there's about 25% of the garden that we set aside for the food bank in West Haven, which is called Wheat. So people would donate their time, plant stuff there, harvest it. There's actually a local school group that took care of the part of that garden too, and would come weekly and pick up all that stuff and bring it down to Wheat, which was lots of fun. And I guess in a way, we did like serious irrigation stuff under here, drip irrigation and things. So, and by basically plowing up a lawn, maybe we help save water or something. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure, this is just a slide, so I didn't forget to talk about it. So one of the fun things is doing a sleeping building audit. So, and we got this idea from the Business Sustainability Challenge. One of the places we visited was Schick down in Milford, and they happened to mention that they did a sleeping building audit, and they came in, on a holiday or a weekend, and there were conveyors running, there were lights on, there's all kinds of things, and so we did the same sort of thing. So we came in, and so that was sort of early on in the process, and it was a great time to find all these air leaks because the building was relatively quiet, and you could hear little hissing sounds all over the place, and then isolate them, and tag them. And, you know, there were lights that were left on. There were actually rooms where there was no light switch. You could not turn the lights off because there was no light switch for that room. So there were things like that that we discovered that we dealt with, and that made you know, all those things made a big difference. Plus, it was just fun to do. So this gives you just a visual idea of you know what we managed to accomplish. So the gray line here is the 2015, 2016 year. So it just runs from, you know, June to May. The orange line is 2016 to 2017, and the blue line here is 2017 to 2018. And I don't have the 2019 information. The guy who had that anyway wasn't available, not available to send it to me. So I don't have that. But you can see year over year. Basically, we're reducing our energy. This particular period of time in May, where everything converges, no matter what year it is, drove me crazy. I ended up talking to Fred Chavi, who is the engineer at United Illuminating, and said, Fred, you know, some of this stuff is tracking so nicely. You know, like I love this month, you know, right here in March, where you can just see every year, boom, 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 it's dropping down. You know, why is this going on here in May? And he was able basically to look it up and figured out that it was because in May of 2017, 2018, it was that much hotter than it was the previous years that that we ended up using more electricity. So that was what was going on there. So again, this was sort of our our approach, and I think it worked really well. We got a lot of employee engagement out of it, and then a lot of ownership. So if you went around and you fixed a bunch of those air leaks and everything, then you're not gonna some outside contractor comes in and fixes air leaks, then later they start other places start leaking or whatever, then you're on this orange line and you're just going down. But if you've been part of that team and you know that was $40,000 worth of air leaks, and you hear something, you can tell that that's a $3,000 air leak that I'm hearing, and I'm going to go fix that. So get something done about it. So you end up with this sort of approach. Plus, people are just engaged and thinking about some stuff. They're starting to think about the next thing before you can even come up with it, and they're making suggestions. The other thing too is that that if you just have a consultant come in and go through your building, they don't know the building like your people know the building. They'll come through, they'll spend 2-3 days going through things. Your people know where all the skeletons are in the closets, and what things are in bad shape, and they're much better at finding those things. So anyway, so it can be much better for your business with the higher engagement. So I'll stop there and maybe we'll see if there's any questions in chat for a little bit before we just sort of finish up.
Thanks, Gavin. We have a couple folks who are reminded of projects that they worked on in their respective places, from pharma to another manufacturer. And Paul Murphy, whom you know from Conscious Capitalism, is happy to talk about the way he ripped off some of your ideas at his manufacturer when we get to the Q&A.
Sure.
But did we skip over the play a game slide, or that's still coming up?
Yeah. So I just before I so this was just an added idea. This was something that I'd wanted to do. So I didn't mention up in the beginning was we did sell our company in March of 2019. One of our competitors came by and was really interested in buying the company.
The proverbial offer you couldn't refuse, huh?
Yeah, a huge offer. And then plus they wanted everybody. They wanted all the facilities. They had a good track record of not, shutting down facilities and moving things to China. They wanted a facility on the East Coast, which we had. They wanted a facility in the Midwest, which we had. They seemed like a really good fit. So yeah, so we went for that. But one of the things that I was talking to people about before we did that, which I really wish that we'd had time to do, was just to play some games with some stuff. So, because once you've done a lot of these things, you want to engage more people. You want to find, you want to get more involvement in it. And then plus, if you can make it a little bit more fun, then people get more excited about it. So then you do get, there are people who don't like change, and you do get people who are pushing back on stuff. But if you can make it a little thing in a little box that has limits, you're much more likely to get people to buy in on it, which is one of the great things about doing a lean project, is you are giving people a chance that normally would work in the business to work on the business, and to actually be involved in how making improvements in the business. And that can make some supervisors or some managers nervous, because they're maybe losing control over the decision-making process because this other team's going to figure that out. But one of the great things about lean is that you can package that. Look, it's just 1 week. It's just in this area. It's just these things. Can you get over that, and can we do that, right? So this is sort of the same sort of strategy. So one of the things that we were able to do with the electric meter system that we had set up with utilities, that we were able to pull up live how much electricity we're using. So one of the things I wanted to do was do like electric utilization game where we would actually post, get the IT department to put it up on everybody's computer screen so that they could see, how much energy we were using, and maybe a little graphical interface or something there. And then just challenge everybody, look, here's, this is how we're doing. This is where it's at. You can see, how things are going. How about, what if like next Wednesday, we just all come in and we challenge ourselves, how little electricity could we use while still running the business normally? What strategies could we employ, and get people to start thinking about that. And for the people who are like, oh God, we gotta do this. Look, it's just 1 day. It's just one thing. We're just going to run an experiment. We're going to have some fun. We're going to see how this works. And then, there may be things that come out of it, like we've all seen this whole COVID thing. Yeah, there's a lot of changes. A lot of things happen that are different, but some of them actually aren't all that painful, and are actually maybe better. So just trying some stuff and having some fun with it isn't altogether a bad thing. So that was just one of the thoughts that I had. I'm just passing along in case somebody else can take it and run with it.
Well, it strikes me that one of the things that's really compatible between lean and a kind of energy reduction goal is the idea that baby steps really do count, and that you can celebrate small wins and then build towards larger impact through, ongoing engagement. So we are starting to have some questions come in, and we've got about 15 more minutes.
Okay. Maybe just this one thing, just to kind of hammer on the human engagement part of things. This is from Gary Hamel. He's London Business School guy, has written a lot of books. This is one of my favorite little quote things from him, is like, the first 3 things, obedience, diligence, and expertise, you can demand that. You can demand people to, do those things, show up on time, do these things, learn this stuff, right? Things like initiative, creativity, and passion, you cannot demand that. You cannot incentivize people to give you that. You have to let them bring it as a free gift. So that's really what you're doing when you're creating a conscious culture, and you're giving people, and you have a shared higher purpose and everything, is that people will come up with those, the initiative, the creativity, and the passion, which is, the first 3 things there, those are the sleepwalkers. The next 4 things, those are your, the next 3 things, those are your engaged people. All right, so I'll be quiet if anybody's got any questions.
No, that's just letting you know we've got a nice group paying attention. So we've got a Q&A slide coming up. So whatever you wanted to cover until then is great.
Okay. Yeah, so just, this just some suggestions, because we're running to the end of our 3-day thing. If you've met people on the summit, you've gotten in, stay engaged with them. We don't want to come back next year and like, oh yeah, I didn't do anything. So, part of this thing of what I was sharing with you just now and everything is that you cannot, as the owner of a business, do this by yourself. There's no way. So don't try to do it by yourself. Don't hire an outside consultant, or hire an outside consultant, but but engage with your people and have them help you do it, because that's the only way that you're gonna, get it really sustainable and get it to happen for over a long period of time. And that's where you're gonna get the biggest bang out of it. Not only from the energy savings point of view, you'll absolutely get more out of it that way, but also the long-lasting, enduring engagement, from people altogether in your business. Good.
That makes a lot of sense.
Want to do? We can do Q&A and
yeah, we have someone, Nathan, thank you, curious about how it worked to purchase all of your energy from wind power.
Oh yeah, this is a great question. So it's pretty painless. Constellation Energy had a 100% wind power package. I can't remember how I found out about it back in 2010. But I remember, we were probably spending, close to $500,000 on electricity at that point, and it was only $14,000 more to have, 100% renewable energy. And I thought, wow, that, because that's where I'm at, mentally and everything, and all you guys know, because what we're all here for. But I was like, yeah, only $14,000 on, a business that's, we were probably $60-70 million business at that time. And spending $500,000 on electricity is like $14,000 nothing. Yeah. So we totally did it. Later on, we actually went out and did reverse auction bids for electricity, and ended up sticking with Constellation. They had the best offer, and the group that we worked with, Enernoc, to do the reverse auction, we actually tracked also, so we said that we were mostly interested in 100% renewable energy, but we also, tracked other options, and there was really almost no difference in the price at all. So we went, for the entire 9 years, we were, basically 100% renewable energy. It was great. And occasionally we remember to use it as a marketing thing. It was fun talking with our customers when they came and asked us picky questions, and like, oh yeah, we got that one covered.
Now, what was the very origin of the community garden?
Yeah, so it was really me. My sister Maureen and I, our offices were side by side, and she was really, really good at this sort of thing too. She reminds me a lot of you, Eleanor, but she, one of the days I was just sitting there, I was trying to think of like, okay, if we can't afford to pay people more, trying to pay people a living wage and whatever, but like, what else could we possibly do? And she was like, well, maybe we can, do some, Costco membership thing, or maybe we can do, buy something on, bulk, or do whatever. And, so we're trying to come up with different ideas, and I basically said, well, what if we just plowed up the lawn, and put these gardens in, and then, while you're taking your lunch break, you can go outside and, tend your tomatoes or whatever, and, pick that stuff up, maybe save yourself, a trip to a grocery store, and, that kind of thing, and get some better nutrition. So, that's kind of how it evolved, as a money saving thing. And it turned out to be a huge employee engagement thing instead.
Very nice. Christia says that she's involved in environmental and sustainability education. So feel free to let us know more, Christia, about how you think that these ideas could be applied in your realm. And then Paul says that in manufacturing, his company made sheet metal enclosures that were powder coated and electrical components were added. And he shamelessly stole many of your great ideas. So he's agreed to come off of mute and explore that a bit. So welcome to Paul.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good.
Gavin, my buddy. So one of the things that we learned from Gavin was the idea of, you mentioned earlier, start with the small steps. I would actually say the small steps are absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
You can't go to the big steps without starting, first of all, to transition through the small steps. And I don't mean the small step in terms of how much money you save, but in terms of, what people see as the basics. If you gather a group of people with little knowledge into a room and said, you're going to be the team that's going to, work on energy savings and power savings, you know, they'll all go to they'll all look up straight away to see what kind of lights you have. And then after that, it is, can we turn some of them off? And that's about as far as you get.
Yep.
So a big part of it after that is sort of engaging them in the data that Gavin did a great job of explaining. And then from there, allowing them to make the logical decisions and then showing that you're willing to back them up in the decisions that they made. We also replaced our compressor with the variable speed drive compressor. We did a few other things as well. I mean, although we did not do the garden, we didn't have enough space, but we did redo our roof, primarily from a leak perspective, but it was a big eye opener for us, as was the air leak. Going in on a Saturday and turning off the air and just letting it basically leak out for, you know, a half an hour. Yep. And you know that's just money. And people start equating it to money very quickly. They understand, look, that's money that's never going to make it to your paycheck because it's going out and it's just being exhausted into the air. And they get very passionate about those things because they know that's a win-win straight away.
Right. Yes, and I think you guys also had a version of profit sharing as did we. Yes. So, you know, because that's part of the ethos too. It's like, yeah, we're all in this together. If we save a whole bunch of money, if we make more money, we're all sharing in it together.
Yes, absolutely. That was a big part of it. Was they could recognize that you know, if we're going to have gain sharing this quarter, these were simple ways to improve the opportunity to do that. The more sophisticated things you get going after a while are you know, we did replace some of the motors with variable speed drive or soft drive motors in certain areas of the factory as well. But then we were able to also carry on, and we had a good guy on the outside that helped us do vibration monitoring on our motors. So we moved to a predictive index as opposed to waiting for the motor to fail. When the motor fails, your process usually goes down. It creates tremendous waste. If your paint line is down, you know, because a motor failed halfway through a paint run, you lose, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars plus scrap plus everything else. So creating predictive tools for our teams to look at those types of things. Then other folks got involved in product designs, looking to eliminate parts from products, because the less parts you have, the less energy required to produce those parts and the less likelihood of having rejects. And then also got into process design. We you know, things we would never have thought of. We were press breaking or bending parts one at a time. And one guy came up and said, why don't we put the parts in literally what's called a web? And then we can bend 9, 10, 11 on a simple bend at a time. And then we realized, gee, we could hang them all together going into paint, which makes, now I got an easy hanging tool that allows me to paint them in a group, which is much more efficient. So these are all simple things that people who are engaged start figuring out that we'd never planned to get into product redesign or process design or things like that, or vibration analysis. They come from your people, and they start to take tremendous pride in the inside understanding that they have. So as they learn cool inside facts like, hey, every minute is this amount of dollars of air, every minute there's an air leak is this amount of dollars of savings that are going out the door, they share that with their teammates because, hey, look, I'm knowledgeable. This is what I learned. And there's a sense of pride about what they learn, and they just seek more learning, more knowledge, because they want to develop a level of expertise that helps them secure their place within the company. So it was definitely a huge learning opportunity for us, and definitely the work that Gavin and his team did at Watson Foods was a huge driver for us. Seeing them, and we did plant tours of their facilities, saw the wonderful ideas that their folks and how engaged their folks were, and it was definitely a morale boost for our folks, and a challenge that they saw, and then we went and stole their ideas. So.
Well, you guys did a great job of coming up with improvements and then just executing them. And we did something similar to that, but I got in the way of it and slowed it down. So then I got myself out of it and just told people, look, you come up with a thing, you figure, get a group together, you all agree it's a good idea, just go do it. Let me know about it later if you want, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, well, I was lazy.
yeah. Yeah, I was too involved in that one, and I didn't realize I was slowing it down, so I got out of the way. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so yeah, I hope people are getting the idea that that, and this is why like those companies outperform the other companies, because you cannot run from a central control point of view, you cannot run it anywhere near as efficiently as if everybody's thinking and everybody's leading from wherever they are. So one of my favorite authors is David Marquez, a submarine commander, or was a submarine commander, wrote a book, Turn the Ship Around. And basically they turned the whole thing around. He said, I'm not giving any more orders. I'm not telling anybody what to do. He said, instead, you guys know what needs to be done. Just say what it is that you intend to do. And people would say, this is what I intend to do. And the officer would say very well, and they'd go do it. So that, instead of having one person thinking about what 135 people are doing, instead you got 135 people thinking about what needs to be done and just going and getting it done, doing it. And
as a follow-up to that, and I think David even refers to this wonderful, it's a Department of Defense publication of all things called Power to the Edge. And it talks about how, just like in a nervous system, the time it takes for decision making to travel from the periphery back to the center and then back.
Yeah.
Right. You lose that responsive capability. And so I think, for folks having internal conversations about getting this stuff started, that's a really good reference for, it doesn't matter how mission critical you are, this is still applicable.
Right. Right.
Can
I just throw in one little thing just to clarify? Because I know that there are people who are listening to this that are very, very, very much into control and very concerned that like, are things going to go off the rails, right? So this is a way to think about it. Okay, so central control doesn't work. It's way too slow, and it's just not gonna function properly, right? And then the other thing is total laissez-faire. Everybody doing whatever the hell they want. That doesn't work either. What works is a group of people that understands that their group, that cares about their group, that's taking care of their commons, the stuff that they own, that they're responsible for, and that they know is an integral part that's supporting the other groups around them, the other parts of the overall bigger team. That works. So you've got to be really clear about what the goals are. You've got to be really clear about what's happening. You have to be open, super open sharing with information. You cannot keep people in the dark about stuff. You've got to tell them what's going on. You got to give them the information that you need to figure things out. And then you got to let them go ahead and do it. And it's not the same thing as laissez-faire, and it's way better than central control. So.
Very nice clarification. Thank you. We have a nice note with just the couple minutes we have left to wrap up. Nancy Travers says, as a guest team member at Watson, I was very impressed with the employee engagement and camaraderie. It was an honor to be a part of this event at Watson. Thanks, Gavin. Anything you'd like to say to Nancy? Or?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Nancy. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So obviously Traver Electric's family business. Jack Traver was in that photo before, and then Nancy was there too. So Nancy helped with crunching numbers and putting stuff in charts and graphs and that kind of thing.
Oh, cool. And then we have Kristia from the field of environmental and sustainability education saying it's always good to hear others' approach to engagement. If you can't engage your audience, community, employees, you have no chance of educating them. So the primacy of engagement before education. Sometimes you need to be creative about how to get people to engage in learning. I would bet that there were employees that started taking an interest in learning about what you were doing because of the garden.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, really, and because they saw other people getting excited about things and doing stuff. And
and then this is probably something that's crossed your mind more than once. Any intelligence about how this stuff is being carried forward at Watson? Or
yeah, it's not terrible. There's that's the big endorsement, right? It is a much bigger company. So we were 350 people. They're 6,000 plus employees. They are a publicly traded company. They operate much more in a controlled sort of way, but they're very nice about it. So everybody is super nice. Everybody's super pleasant. When people would come to visit from different other different facilities, they would always remark on the culture. I visited some of their facilities. They were great. So there's more paperwork than I would like to see. I certainly wouldn't make any, like somebody in the maintenance department thinks we need to have a certain bearing in supply. I'm just like, yeah, I got it, because you know what you're doing, and I just trust you to figure it out, and be doing the right thing. And if you want to ask me something, go ahead and ask me, but I trust you to know what you're doing. Versus, they would tend to ask more questions, maybe fill out some more forms, and that kind of thing, and make it more complicated than I strictly think it needs to be. But anyway, that's my take on it. I think
I'm just flashing my face up here at the end to say thank you so much for a very solid and packed hour with all kinds of resources. And we hope people will take these ideas and form their own action plans and stay in touch.
Yeah, and actually, I promised to do this.
Oh, your contact slide, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, I better show this. I'll be in trouble. So Eversource and UI are both, or Avangrid are both redoing their programs right now. This is the contact information for Eversource. You can talk to this guy, figure out find out what's going on. And then Sherry Borelli is the person at Avangrid. That's her contact information. I'm sure you, Eleanor, or somebody can, pop that into the chat or something so people can grab that info.
And we got some updates this morning, actually, about how they're being updated. So I'll drop the speaker from this morning's links into the chat. So we have some great job comments, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks.